Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another Robidoux Row live stream. Here today, we are going to talk about another period of the 1850s kind of businesses that were rising. But first, we do want to talk a little bit about what's going on here at the Row and some exciting new things that we do have coming in here today. First of all, this month and next month is membership month. So if you are not a member of the Historical Society and the Robidoux Row, definitely get in touch with us because your benefits are amazing. Brooke, you want to tell them a little bit about some of the benefits they get of being a member of the Robidoux Row or a member of the Historical Society?
Sure, yeah. The North American Reciprocal Museum Association is part of your membership on a certain level, and it grants you access to over 1,200 museums across the U.S.
Yes.
So this is something that you can take advantage of if you're just taking that small trip over the weekend, or hey, if you're really planning something, you can look up and see what's available in the area that you're visiting, and you can go to those museums. It's a variety of different types of museums that participate, so it's not just one kind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's art museums. I know there's a lot of history museums. I know we recently, my family and I, when we were in Chicago, were able to hit up the history museum there, along with a couple art museums that were more specified art museums that you don't necessarily easily get into.
Yeah. Humanities,
Yes.
cultural museums, photography museums, Native American museums. So the list goes on and on this. And I did want to mention that we recently had a community garage sale, and that was very successful.
Definitely.
We raised a lot of money, got a good group of crowd in. So I just wanted to relay on those successes as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Along with that, and you actually would get access to first information on that if you're a member, as well as we do send out a quarterly historical newsletter that covers not just the history of the area, but we actually cover historical articles. We use a lot of articles that were written historically about a building or about a part of St. Joseph that you may not have been able to read yourself because they may come from a book or a magazine that just isn't available today. Along with that, of course, you do get free access to the museum. For yourself and any family member you bring with you. And you also get access to our member-only events, including our Christmas party, which is absolutely fantastic. We always have some fun there. There's normally a gift exchange. Some really good food will come in. I personally always make wassail. So if nothing else, that is worth a membership, is you can try my wassail. So
my bacon-wrapped dates went over very well.
Yes.
They were all gone, so that was successful.
Yeah, so definitely if you're interested, if you're on the fence, get in touch with Brooke or I. We're happy to explain all the additional benefits. There's so much more to our membership here than just what we just explained
And
here.
come in and take a tour. We'd be happy to show you around.
So along with that, we actually want to fly up some pictures here that we're going to be bringing up here of some of our new vendors we actually have.
Yeah.
One of them is not a new one. She brought in some new items with Moonlight Leather. Yeah. She actually brought in some amazing new leather work pieces that are flashing up on the screen here now for you to see of kind of what's available here at the Row.
Right.
We have some amazing items that you may not even realize are here at the gift shop. If you have a birthday coming up and you have somebody who's looking for a wallet, or I know she recently brought in a few visors and some rings. I think there's even a little old style paper football that's made of leather, so you're not going to break it. If you have a kid who's looking for something fun, that's something that that's a one of a kind gift no one else is going to have. Along with her, we actually do have another brand new vendor, new enough that we actually are still getting the sign printed off for her, in ER Designs. ER Designs is a company that they do t-shirts, but here at our museum, they're actually selling soaps. They're custom made soaps that are natural ingredients. And so we have a few pictures here we'll flash up. Those are only $6 a piece for those bars of soaps.
And I've got to say, I have bought some and used them personally. I have sensitive skin. There was not a reaction. I do like organic soaps, so, they've been vetted. They're great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So come by, even if it's just to pick up a couple of those items, come swing by the Row. We do have some brand new books that we brought out to the book side as well for us here at the gift shop. So come see us. Come get yourself some presents for yourself or for a family member. And definitely, we hope you do enjoy our presentation today on confectionaries, on candy making, on the history of the sweet stuff. So we'll definitely look forward to hearing from you guys and enjoy the presentation. So candy has been a part of human society since all the way back to the caveman era. In that era, you would see the use of honey. I mean, before even sugar existed, you had ancient Egyptians, the ancient Chinese, people from the Indus River Valley, Middle Eastern people, even Greeks and Romans, that would combine honey with fruits and nuts to kind of create early candies, which were more viewed as oddly enough, a medical treatment for if you had an upset stomach. And then you had the development of some sugar processing. Obviously, they knew about sugar cane and stuff like that, but it wasn't really a mass-produced thing. When you're talking the Middle Ages, you're really looking at them being a high-priced delicacy where it was almost only available for the rich, to the point where there were actual countries that actually defined sugar as a drug to use for curing different ailments, and was only sold to apothecaries because it was so valuable and so insane.
In the early days, you also had people supplying sweets to their family or for their own sweet tooth by sourcing it by their own means. So you had men making it their business in some cases to go out into the woods and find honey trees to rob the honey, and also would market it per pound. So at some points in time, you could sell 10 to 25 cents a pound for honey, which was pretty high during that period. Also, bees were another source, sorghum, cane, and you can also extract sweets from corn called glucose. So that is such an interesting way to source sweets.
And so a lot of sweets, you don't see the growth of them, caramels and lollipops and stuff like that, until that mid-1840s. It's actually interesting because in that era, you actually saw the discovery of a very special plant. Brooke, what plant do you think was discovered in this era?
Ooh, sugar beet.
Yes, the sugar beet, which until we researched this, I didn't know was a thing. Once that was discovered, you now all of a sudden had a mass-producible product for sugar. And so you suddenly saw an expansion of chocolates and other sweets all flooding the market, coming from small confectionaries to large businesses. And so what we want to kind of cover here today is a little bit of some of the local businesses, the local growth of the candy and confectionery industry, and then where they went from there.
Sure, and Daniel was talking about the 1840s. During this time frame, there was a lot of advancement in the way of equipment for candy making. And St. Joe is no different. We were leading the charge in candy making in a lot of ways. One of the first small shops that were equipped for candy making was run by Vegali.
Yes.
Mr. August Vegali, who built his first business on Felix Street, who would later be bought out by William Neer Candy Company, and later would be rebought out by Douglas Candy Company, which you all may know a little bit more. So Douglas Candy Company was in business for a very long time. It did change locations a few different times, but we'll have a photo of that on the screen.
Yeah, definitely. And so you really saw the rise of this candy company concept. And one of the most interesting parts is the first ones where you can find a lot of, not just with like the Neer and those kind of companies, is we have a picture here of a bill that was done by J. Burke. J. Burke, we know we covered last week as a grocer. But he also later, when that became more popular, moved into the confectionery business. And so you see a lot more of this growth of candy becoming a thing where what we always think of a kid going out and getting a sweet tooth taken care of started becoming a thing. We're next going to put up a few images of some other local smaller ones that we're going to talk a little bit about and kind of overview of them. We've got Bell's. As you can see on the ad here, most of these ads were taken from theater bills, which was a very common thing. The St. Joseph Candy Company was another very big company here in town. Then you had Hagalon's. This one I absolutely love because it's a business that was actually owned by a woman. And she actually was a baker and a confectionery, which may give you a little hint what we're going to talk about later. And then we get to this Wit store.
Yeah.
They were a storefront that was a bakery, but if you can see in the writing underneath, it also talks about them selling ice cream, which I found so fascinating because ice cream is another one of those things that came out of this growth of sugar.
Sure. Yeah, and I just absolutely love that photo. We'll show that on the screen. And then we had more of the factories that came into play. So we had these smaller places and places that grew out of grocery stores. And so we also see the rise in factories. I know that the Douglas was a factory during that time. The Mueller,
Yes, Mueller.
was also a factory, and there was a basement. There was at least 4 floors, and Daniel was actually talking about the time frames of operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these, and this will transition to talk about what these confectionaries became. So when you see these large buildings for Douglas and Mueller, and then I'm actually going to throw up in a minute here one that most of you probably will recognize here in town, in the Summers and Richardson Company, is a lot of these moved from these confectionaries of making candy into bakeries. They had the supplies they needed because you already had a lot of the early candies still use flour as well as part of their ingredients. And so they had all the ingredients, and because you had to cook the sugar at such a high temperature to make a hard candy, which is one of the most common things during the era, they would only do that at night. So they weren't overheating their building. We're not talking about an air-conditioned building here. We're talking about an 1850s, 60s building where there was no air conditioning.
Wow.
And so there was a huge transition to, okay, what do we do during the day? We can't just have our open at night. We want to make money, so we're going to run the factory during the day as well. And so they would start baking bread during the day.
Okay, bakery by day, confectionery by night.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so that's where you see, like, a good example of that is, again, the Summers and Richardson Biscuit Company. What we now know as the Cracker Company or the Saltine Cracker Company started off, and as you can see by the advertisement we have up here, as making candies too. They made both. You could buy your crackers or your other items that they were making, or you could buy candies from this company because they were just using their technology to maximize the amount of time that they were doing stuff. They had employees coming in at night that were candy makers and employees coming in during the day that were making bread. And so a lot of these you'll see slowly transition out of the candy industry. Some still did stay in there, like you have Poe and Company, which later became what we all know of the Chase Candy Company that makes Cherry Mash here in St. Joe. But some of them transitioned, like Somers, into becoming what now is Nabisco. And a lot of those grew out of that.
Question, what's your favorite candy?
I'm a whatchamacallit fan.
Okay, all right.
What about you?
Anything with coconut.
Gotcha.
Yeah, coconut.
Well, so leave your favorite candy down below, or if you have a local candy story, let us know. We know some people who have told us stories about living in the area and knowing some of these candy companies. Next week, we're going to kind of transition to a next new era of history. So come back next week when we get into the 1860s and kind of how the Civil War impacted. We are going to dive a little more into this bakery concept in a couple weeks as well.
Yeah.
To kind of flesh out what they became. But we will get you guys all next week. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. And have a great week. Bye.